Welcome to the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your dedicated parental alienation coach, here to guide and support families as they navigate the challenges of high conflict divorces and custody battles. On this podcast, we'll share insights, practical strategies, and hope for those on the journey toward healing and justice. Whether you're personally experiencing these challenges or just want to learn more about the complexities of parental alienation and custody disputes, you're in the right place. You are not alone. This is the Fractured Families podcast, where every voice matters and every story is heard. And if you find my conversation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us reach more families who need it. Hi, thanks for joining the Fractured Family podcast. This is Charity, your host. I have with me Tracy. She's going to tell us her horrendous, heartbreaking story of alienation and how her ex-husband is using financial abuse, litigation abuse, and of course, most importantly, using the children to destroy her personally, emotionally, financially, and psychologically. Tracy, thank you for joining the Fractured Families podcast. Your story, wow. Heartbreaking. Why don't you tell us about it?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show, Charity. I started off, I married, helped my ex-husband through law school. And back, he's always had a addictive personality, alcoholism, violence. And shame on me. That's the hardest lesson I've ever learned, that love cannot change a wild animal. They will always be a wild animal, even in captivity. And throughout the years, I put up with it. Unfortunately, thinking someone can change. And he hides behind religion, wanted to be a priest, this guy. So Irish Catholic. And this was the thing. So after every apartment ever being destroyed and having children, violence still escalated. There was always police reports that were coming to the apartment here in New York. And back in 2014, it was the hardest lesson I had to learn, is almost being killed in front of my children. Long story short, it was a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and he was supposed to be doing his law practice. And he was drinking all day long, came home in a rage of violence. And I was asleep reading stories in a bunk bed with my older son, 3 at the time, or 5 at the time, I'm sorry. And then my younger child, 2, in his crib across in the room. And I fell asleep to waking up to just everything shattering and chairs being thrown into a wall and TVs thrown. And it was to the point that I just woke up, and you still can't process it, but just being woken up and just had my pajamas lifted up by the pajamas and thrown across to my child by his crib on the foot of his bed. And that's when your adrenaline starts kicking in, and you have the only thing that the resource is your phone. And for dear life, you held on to it. And then I'm trying to protect my children as well, because you just saw in his eyes just rage and like kill in his eyes. So that's the first thing, as a mother, we all want to protect our children. And that's what I did, and still being kicked across the room violently. And my children were a complete mess. And it escalated to the point of him being in the kitchen and him actually lifting me up. And he's 6'2", 280 pounds. I'm 5'2", 120 pounds. Talk about advantage. And this lifting me up by the throat and just punching me and kicking me, and me thinking everything. And I had all the resources to fight back, but you don't think about that time. You're in a kitchen, you have knives to fight back, and that's not what you think of someone that supposedly loves you. And this was not love. It was a wild animal instinct of kill. A long story short, it took 5 minutes to just think about how to call 911, what a shock my body was in. And he just went to the bathroom and took a shower like nothing. Meanwhile, there's 5 police, NYPD, that came and just pulled him out of the shower and took him and arrested him. So that was his first official arrest. And then now we go through the process. There's order protections in place by the NYPD and detectives and DA, but that means nothing. You are still allowed, after your children just witnessed this, to have your signed visitation. And then he wants a divorce all of a sudden. He wants child custody, and you can't process it because you're in that, you're so traumatized at that time, and you're trying to figure out how to have the lights that have just been ripped out of the ceiling, and your kids are eating by candlelight. How are you going to do the next thing? And so you have all these legal tactics that are purposely thrown, and whether he learned that in law school or by a fellow member of the bar, it's not fair. And domestic violence agencies are trained, but not to this degree of the legal manipulation, and that's allowed. And then, so years go by, I have to go by this arranged visitation. Many times, 90% of the times, he would not want to visit his children, and he maybe lived 30 minutes away. I have a job that's very entailed of being on the road and traveling quite a bit. So I would have to work 3 times as hard. But I was great at just finding a babysitter that would replace me, my strictness and education, making these kids get dressed up, go to school, go to assigned therapy, which it was always important. Therapeutic therapy. They were still processing it, did play therapy with their counselors. And regardless, there was no option for these babysitters to skip out on this therapeutic therapy for my kids. And then we were living in New York in these apartments. It's maybe $2,600 for 800 square feet, living above and below people. I wasn't getting child support, and it was all sporadically. And that's the other thing. It's the financial abuse that they put us through. And you see the tactics. You can say, Your Honor, I'm holding him in contempt because I just need minimum money to survive and put food on the table. And he will commit perjury. And this is where perjury is allowed. And we are so naive to think like, oh, you raise your right hand, we're supposed to all tell the truth, or we're going to be thrown in the slammer. No. We are so naive. And he can point blank lie at a judge and say, oh, yes, I have her money right here. Meanwhile, it's maybe a check for $50, $100 compared to $15,000. He didn't lie that he had currency. It was just the wrong denominations. So who does that cost? It costs all of us money to retain legal counsel, to take off time of work, to facilitate this legal abuse that's allowed. And these judges know it. And then we fast forward. I bought a house on my friend's recommendations, paying outrageous rent, and living conditions were deplorable. And so I bought a house for my children. I didn't know where it was going to be, but this was the only thing I could afford. And I wanted my children to have a childhood and climb trees and dig for earthworms like I did and use their imaginations. I don't allow electronics. It's very sparingly. You give me good grades and good behavior, then it's allotted certain time. And rightfully so. And the father would always kind of, what are you eating? And that's another tactic too. And any little crumb you can give them, the child to complain, they're going to use our children to weaponize against us. So you mean your mother didn't buy you sushi today? No, because I'm on a budget and I meal plan for the babysitter and me every 5 days a week. Wednesdays are leftovers. And then you have the father on the other line ordering Uber Eats. Meanwhile, what is that, your kind of manipulation of just in every sense of appeasing these children, or buy $300 tennis shoes. I am not going to buy $300 tennis shoes, but the bad parent is to further reel in the child. So that was going on. Then I had in 2021, my children were always going to therapy where we now resided in. And it was documented, their therapist, my therapist, the change of all of a sudden from not being fearful of going to the father's house is saying, we don't want to go. Why do we have to go? And their therapist saying, we have to, we can't explain it, but you have to abide by this until mommy can figure this out. So they saw the change in the attitude. All of a sudden, the weekends became 4 days, 5 days. They weren't going to school. You put in an order. And then finally to the point, my little one, not 10 years old, but it was a text. Mommy, I do not want to go to your house that you bought with your money. That's an adult's verbiage. For 10 years old, my child is highly intellectual, but not to have that kind of verbiage. So stuff like this. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, there's false allegations. Not once, but 3 times that I beat. Insufficient food was the first allegation of insufficient food in the house. And this is a great example. I'm going to show you really fast of this is CPS texting me that we just got a call in reference to insufficient concerns about inadequate food in the house. I'm like, and then on the bottom, I'm like, this is a flat out lie. This was my refrigerator, organic chicken, turkey. And this is for the babysitter because there's never in New York, this is just my pantry. So, and these kids eat $28 Joe's crab from Miami that I would bring home for them. These kids aren't starving by any means whatsoever. They are food snobs, sort of say. So it's accusations like that, which I beat. And there's no way you can, or unattended child was another one. My surveillance cameras and my neighbors were next door. So that was the second accusation. And the third, the silver bullet, So that was by the same, I have two children. I have two
Mm-hmm.
boys. So the two false allegations were, of course, from my older child that he said that, hey, he had to go by. The unattended child that's 12 years old, that's 5'8", 5 feet 8 inches tall, always had surveillance cameras on him. He had a timeout. Bottom line, I squashed that because in the CPS records, it says mother has surveillance cameras and child was on surveillance cameras with neighbors. So absolutely, that was squashed. The third one was just the most despicable one was, it's always sexual. And I think
Mm-hmm.
3% of mothers that are accused of SAing a child, it's 3%. We gave birth to our children. We are protective, as that is our maternal instinct when they are conceived. I wouldn't even drink coffee, just worrying about the side effects of my child. Or I'd be in France and I'm like, oh, can't partake in the amazing wine and cheeses because I have baby. So to have a false allegation of such warped, and it's always a sexual allegation, that's the silver bullet that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was and I recorded this, and you can hear CPS tell me what this accusation was, and I still play it back, and I couldn't process it was so disturbing. I couldn't even process what she was saying, and you can hear me repeat it. So things like that. And wrongfully, CPS automatically, and I gave them all the evidence, and I had credible witnesses that my children have grown up with, and all the resources. They refused to see my evidence, but yet and found me guilty. So by no means, and I insist everybody, and I was not going to go down lightly. I was not going to, this would mean my career in every aspect. As I get random drug testing, I get random alcohol testing, I get psychological evaluations every now and then. And and this would have cost me my career. And it nearly has cost me my career. So I fought and went to, had a judge in Albany, New York for child and family services. And I fought it. And this judge was tough, but she was a just judge. And she scrutinized everything from just your children innocently sitting on your feet, in winter. It's New York. It's, middle winter. And of such a horrible accusation of mother wrapping legs around child, and stuff like this. It was just really disturbing. And this judge, she saw it. She was like, and detectives, it's documented that it was manufactured by the father. My child changed his story not once, but 5 times minimal. And that saved me. But CPS is still going by that false accusation. And I just had something drafted up. You cannot, if it's unfounded and sealed, CPS is not allowed to continue to bring it up, whether it's a res judicata or whatever else. So, and now, fast forward, I haven't had any contact with my younger child since he's 10 years old. In my custody, my child thrived in 8.5 years. He was a bright child. His verbiage was outstanding. Common sense. Just every problem solving. I'd come home from an 18-hour day, halfway around the world, and still do homework or still show up to that field trip and still do handwriting with them. And now my child has missed 469 classes. Now you have educational neglect. So now he's allowed to go to high school, and probably has a 6th grader's education, which is sad. And I showed it on a platform I'm on, of showing the deterioration, what a child's penmanship and articulation from 9th grade to now present, or a 9 years old to now a 9th graders. It's very sad. And I have a friend that's a psychologist and works in jails. She's like, Tracy, this is the handwriting of a prisoner. And the child just turned 14. So you have educational neglect. The father is doing nothing to facilitate. He can pick up a child's sibling, pick him up and throw him across the room, but you can't pick up a child, put him in a vehicle, or even call the police to say, listen, my child does not want to go to school. Please, you need to teach him authority and who is the boss. So this is what's going on. And then you have emotional neglect. My ex has been in contempt for failure to facilitate therapeutic therapy. And that's a standard of the other party is supposed to facilitate therapeutic therapy for reunification, right? Well, these judges aren't following their own orders. And this is the problem. So now you can hold them in contempt for attorneys later, whether you have a legal aid attorney or whether you have to go into debt retaining another attorney. A judge isn't holding him in contempt or giving him lashings or taking his law license away. He's allowed to continue to destroy this child. So you have educational neglect, you have mental neglect, you have physical neglect. My child is obese, is on medication now. What other way can you destroy a child?
I
So
just, that is so heartbreaking. And it is so infuriating that it's okay to just see. I mean, how do the judges not see? Does the child ever show up in court? Does your son ever show up in court?
no, because they said it would be too traumatizing for him. In fact, I wanted my child to do a trial. And my ex-husband was like, oh, it'll be too traumatizing. And I urge everybody, and that is the children's truth before they're tainted, is put them on the stand.
Yeah.
Subject, I wish they would allow a lie detector test, but they
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't for children. But I was just curious, like I don't necessarily I think that prior to being tainted, you're right, there's some value in it, but then once they're in the home of the alienating abuser, they're just parroting what they say. So there's no value. It would just be used
Yeah.
against you. But I was just curious, like if he ever was shown up in court and the judge looks and says, wow, look at that deterioration, right? But they just sit back and allow, and there's no consequences, Tracy. For perjury, there's zero consequences. For contempt, there's zero consequences. I tell my clients all the time, they're like, well, I'm going to get a protection order, or I finally got custody. But what does that actually mean? Because even when you finally win custody after 7 years, we're not going to bring them.
Yeah.
And they're, okay, well, they aged out at this point. Well, they've aged out. So good luck.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your older son. So you
Yeah.
have a relationship with him.
I have a relationship, very it's very rocky, because I was on a phone call with him a couple months ago, and he was being disrespectful. He's almost 18. He's a high school, and I tell him, listen. And I've always been point blank. Listen, this is what, and that's the other thing too. How can you? I'll show it. That's okay, because this was truth. It's not, false. So how can you be an attorney, be
Oh, yeah.
70,000 arrears? That's 17,000. So this is not a joke. I would be completely transparent with my child. You're asking me for $300 shoes, but this is what daddy gives you and doesn't give me. Zero
Mm-hmm.
January, zero through June. This is what he owes me, $17,284.85. But yet you can still so you see that. And then I have, many of people know that this is the child that was abused because he didn't want to go to church, Charity. So he had the sad reality of writing his own police report, and it states, and I show it here and there, I did not want to go to church, so my dad picked me up by the shirt and threw me across a room. So now he was backtracking a couple months ago, and I said
Yeah.
something because he was being disrespectful. I said, don't talk to me. You don't talk to me that way. I don't
Mm-hmm.
curse. I'm not disrespectful with you. I expect the same. I'm not your father. And I said something like, maybe that's what happens. I did something cheeky, like maybe this is why, maybe I should throw you across the room or something like that. And he's like, that never happened. And I was like, excuse me? He's like, that never happened. I said, wait a minute. And I was trying to process. I'm like, you were never picked up and thrown across the room. And he's like, nope. So maybe my ex-husband was there. And I think there's definitely some, that's the other thing. There's always listening devices that the other parent
Yeah.
puts in place. So every time I talk to my child is being monitored, and you can hear who you're talking to, and stuff like that. And I know
Mm-hmm.
he's hiding behind a door. And then recently he was upset because he wanted me to go to a prom for pictures because a rich kid was having a prom that wanted their parents there. And so I'm explaining to a child or a 17-and-a-half-year-old, listen, how would you like if a bully nearly killed you, strangled you, and then me say, hey, listen, just for, uh, purposes only, or facade to pretend that we're one happy family and you guys are good buddies, just stand beside the person that nearly killed you. But it doesn't get through. So I think
Mm-hmm.
in retaliation now he's complaining. And then now I have a false allegation, from CPS. And then I'm going to fight and I'm going to beat. How can you have, and there, like I said, you're taking valuable resources out of sitting in someone's basement being chained. But the CPS supervisor said, well, anybody can draft a false accusation 100 times a day. We have to investigate it. And I said, lady, I'm not the problem. Obviously, this person's a problem with 5 arrests and violence history. So it's definitely worn on my relationship. Every time I try to make an effort to go see my child, and he lives now, that's the other thing too. The parent moves further out without consent. And by the
Mm-hmm.
time they move out with consent, and everybody, your attorney's like, that's a lie. He had no permission or didn't put in for relocation, then it's too late. The children are
Mhm.
already established in the school
Yeah.
district as
Mhm.
residential. And so now I live about 2.5, 3 hours away further from my child now. So every time I make plans with him, his dad has a sudden event that he needs to take him to, or he needs to see his cousins. So why am I going to drive 6 hours, a day minimum in
Mhm.
traffic to be
Mhm.
stood up by, a child?
Yeah. So, has Child Protective Services ever been called on your ex-husband?
Oh, many times.
And what are the findings there?
None, unfounded. So you can have educational neglect. There was one of my younger child that just turned 14. His teacher called because she was asking how he was doing. I said, he's not doing. He's not even
Mhm.
going to school. He's
Mhm.
missed, I think, he's missed most of his middle school. So you have a child that is failing in every way. And so she called CPS. And they did not find the father guilty of educational neglect.
What are the grounds for that? I mean,
Because the child has anxiety.
yeah,
Sure,
because he's abused.
exactly. But if our and the child is my child, I believe is having, and it's true. He has to abide by a law, by a lie, on a false narrative that was
Mhm.
proven
Yeah.
manufactured by the father. And those are the words of a judge in the state of New York. So now my child is living a lie. And maybe 2 years ago, I had any chance of my child still saying, hi, mommy, maybe I'll come
Mhm.
and see you or come with my brother. Now it's pretty much nil. Whatever my ex husband has poisoned and tainted this child and facilitating his educational neglect, and my little one being on Xbox all day, gorging on chips. He's
Mhm.
obese. This is what I guess he's doing so he won't lose his marbles, his temper once again, so he won't be incarcerated for the sixth time. Because then there'll be a difference, and I will definitely take action. These last 5 times, you're trying to get through the mental abuse, the legal abuse, and kind of comprehend of how the law is so unjust and it's so opposite of everything we've been trained
Yeah.
as children.
It's completely like, it's so shocking when you first go through the family court and even in criminal cases, you have this idea of Law and Order or NYPD Blue, like where they go and they solve crimes. That's not the case. It is so corrupt. It is so unbelievably unfair. And it's driven by dollars. And relationships. It's crazy how just knowing somebody who knows a judge can directly impact the outcome of your case. And it
Absolutely.
doesn't matter if the child's life's on the line.
No.
It just doesn't matter.
And Charity, that's the common denominator is we all kind of discover this, uh, after the fact
Right.
of that. And I explain it to everybody. It's more money for everyone. The
Mhm.
longer a CPS case is open, the more funding they get.
Mhm.
Of course. And then
Mhm.
you have the judge. It goes into the judge's retirement because why solve a problem in 60
Mhm.
days when it could be for
Yeah.
600 days?
Yeah.
And then you have the attorney for children, or the guardian items, as you want to call them. So, and then they're the judge's friends. Like, hey, here's a kickback for you. I'm going
Yeah.
to throw you a new client for $250 an hour at the taxpayer's expense. So the attorney that you hire, that's sworn
Yeah.
into the bar. He's not going to fight for us because
No.
he's going to have to go against the judge
Mhm.
tomorrow and the next week and saying, listen, I told the judge he's taken, their due process away and every right they have, and now I'm gonna get it. So of course they want to appease the court. So it's
Mhm.
a vicious money circle. And meanwhile, every day, Charity, and I'm sure you do too, I wait for that call from either a hospital that my child has either taken his own life from true depression and had his mother taken away at the age of 10, and is not thriving in any sense. The proof is in the pudding. And 4 years in the father's custody, and as an attorney, this guy should be held to a higher degree of the
Oh, yeah.
law. But
Mhm.
no, these guys are facilitating, and there's huge judicial bias. There's ex parte communications.
Mhm.
There's so many court dates that I wasn't made aware of, but yet this guy has nothing better to do but be a true deviant and a sociopath to continually abuse me, but legally now, and that's allowed.
That is so devastating. Is he in a relationship again? Or is he
No, I wish he would be.
Yeah.
Probably just in a relationship with the devil, but that's about it. Not even, but yeah. And this is the sad part. There's no judicial accountability, which we need to. And there's other people in Texas that are taking the three strikes,
Yeah.
Robert
Yeah.
Garthas. But
Hmm.
we agree to disagree, Robert and I, because you are still tainting. You get your child back, Charity,
Hmm.
but your child is so brainwashed, and you're trying to reprogram your
Yes.
child for all the years that have been taken
Yes.
from you. But then they're going to throw in, whether it's mother or bad father, they're
Hmm.
going to say, I need my visitation legally, my assigned visitation this week. No, because then the child's going to be re-traumatized and re-poisoned,
Yes.
which I've told
Yes.
Robert Garza. It doesn't work. Your time back should be your time back uninterrupted, the same
Uninterrupted.
way
Yes.
as it was with the other parent. But like Robert said, it's not going to go.
And basically, what happens when the child is sent back to the abusive, alienating parent, they literally regress back to that state prior to them spending time with the targeted parent. The only true scientific backed way to deprogram a child is to remove them from the abusive environment. And then you have to reunify them with that family and that parent. And even then, Tracy, it's not an easy recovery. It's a tough road. Think about your son, 4 years of erasing. It's like a cult where you're literally deprogramming them.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't happen overnight. And if they're of age, they'll run away. They can just pick up and leave. And if they have contact with that alienating parent, you better believe that's what they're telling them to do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And the courts take a position that, well, we can't just pull the child away from the abusive, alienating parent because it's psychologically damaging. What? But it was okay to do it to the targeted parent? That was acceptable?
Absolutely. And then the saddest part is, as a mother, to
Yeah.
watch, it was so disheartening that I got I got to see his penmanship, and he can't even construct a sentence, much as his writing, and to see this child just disintegrate. That's allowed, and nobody cares because there's a dollar amount on his
Of
forehead,
course.
like all of our
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
And there's no accountability by these. We go to the bar association, we go to the appellate division. Nobody cares. They're all part of the problem. There's no oversight on these departments unless it's going to be Doge that's going to
Yeah.
be the superhero. It's going to clean up this. But I'm sure you're in agreement. Family court doesn't need to be restructured. Needs to be demolished from the ground up.
Abolished completely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on the Titanic. You
Yeah.
cannot do that.
No.
There's so much corruption of just
Mhm.
not even having the true transparencies from a transcripts to people, parents I've spoken to have been arrested just attempting to record,
Oh,
or
yeah.
yeah, my paralegal was arrested with all the proper documentation. But my judge is so fearful because I'm up against every attorney in that courtroom that's against me and that's been tainted by a fellow member of the bar, a crony. So you're going to
Mhm.
have to take one for the team.
Mhm.
And yeah, and they're protecting one of their own. So all my rights are being violated. I'm not allowed an ADA. You tell me why I'm not allowed an ADA. I never knew this 10 years ago, that I have to go to court and be having someone to my left that nearly killed me. You cannot function mentally and logically. There's so many things, but this is the problem, that there's no oversight by these corrupt officials and there's no accountability.
And they make their own rules too. Let's not forget about that. They decide from one hearing to the next how they're going to dictate outcomes. And you can have the exact same case, your case, and the next person going in with that case, and completely different outcomes.
Absolutely.
It's just this is what I want to do today. And there's no accountability.
No. And I tell people, what other occupation, and think about it, Charity, what other occupation, we're all accountable, whether we go work at McDonald's or we
Mhm.
go into have more structured environment that's very strategic and there's cause and effect for all of our actions. So what other occupation can you destroy innocent lives, victims' lives, from
Mhm.
children to the people, to good parents that have completely been victimized, whether it's physically, legally, financially, and rinse and repeat the same day with no oversight.
Zero.
And these judges aren't subjected to drug testing, random drug testing,
Mm-mm.
or psychological evaluations. Why is it? And they have such an important job
I know.
of transforming these children. And these decisions are having irreversible ramifications throughout the children's lives and their children and vice versa.
It's that transgenerational trauma that they continue to inflict with their power. And the thing is, Tracy, is like we all talk about, oh, the judges need education. It wouldn't matter. It's a great way to say check, but it wouldn't matter because at the end of the day, they're still part of this circle of abuse where I know this person, I'm going to make this much money, and that lawyer did this, and this person, it doesn't matter. You can have the amount of awareness and education you and I have and sit on a bench, and still, if we're going to be profiting off of making the wrong decisions and we're corrupt, guess what we're going to do?
Yeah.
We're going to make the wrong decisions because we're profiting off of that.
Yeah, it's a coup d'etat. And it's so sad, but there's no other occupation. I just don't know, even know if you're a doctor and you get malpractice.
Yeah.
You don't get a process law anymore. You break the law and you're a judge, you still get to rinse and repeat and destroy other people's lives.
Mhm.
So why they're not held to a higher degree and there's zero oversight by these people? And like you said it exactly, they make up their own rules, and the
Mhm.
judge next door in the next chamber makes up his own rules for the court.
Yeah. And then they all meet and collaborate and decide how they're going to find other ways to profit.
Exactly. And this is the thing, but this has to come to a head. We all have to continue speaking up. We all have to, write our legislators, write Doge. Hopefully I don't know what else it's going to take to have accountability by these people.
The clients that I interact with, the people you interact with, they say, well, when it happens to them, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it happens to them because that's just a snapshot in time of their life. It doesn't directly impact them in the way that it makes them create change. And even if, let's just say, a judge like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I've been wrong. I'm going to change my ways. They can't because of the corruption and because of the circle of corruption. They're part of a mafia. They don't get to just back out. They literally they can't change, they have to walk away. That's the only option, is to retire.
Absolutely.
They don't get to say, I'm going to be different today. I'm going to be legal today. I'm going to change lives. That's not how it works.
There's no morality. There's no
No.
ethical. There is no conscience whatsoever. And they condone this. That it's worse than the P. Diddy. Well,
Mhm.
everyone turns a blind eye, or the Epstein,
Mhm.
and condones this deviant behavior. And there's no recourse. And this is the problem. It has to come to a stop.
It's national. I mean, some states are definitely worse than others. In
Mm.
some states, the abuse is not as much publicity and visibility because of the socioeconomics of individual states and counties, but it's everywhere. It's rampant in every city,
Oh,
county, and state. It's just some are more vocal because you have advocates like yourself to talk about it.
yes, no. And here in New York, it's so much more, I think. I mean, we could all say, Florida is corrupt, California is corrupt,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I think in New York, it's so much harder because the corruption is so, our mayors and
Yeah.
attorney general, everything's sealed. My ex-husband's filed is sealed. You can't even find him on Truth Finder. If I have a jaywalking ticket, I'm sure that's on Truth Finder. But to get access to our own family courts, it's not so easy and readily available as you can in Florida or California.
Mhm.
Everything is, I can't even access my family court file. You tell me if that's not corruption at its finest.
How unacceptable is that? Unbelievable.
Yeah.
How do you create a defense if you don't have access to your case?
No, you have to physically go and make a trek to the courthouse. And if you live away, then you're SOL. But it's like the movie The Firm. Remember with
Yeah,
Tom Cruise? And this is
yeah,
exactly. And he wants to get out of the firm because he
yeah.
realizes it. And this is the only way to describe people that have not dealt with parental alienation. And I know many people don't like me using that word. It is what it
Mhm.
is.
It
You can
is.
be alienated from your country, a country club. You can be alienated from a Bible
Mhm.
study. Gardner, he just so happened to use that phrase, but just because we have camps and concentration camps doesn't mean you can't go to a yoga camp and use the word camp.
Mhm. Mhm.
Alienation is alienation,
Yeah,
period.
yeah. People don't wanna talk about it because it creates uncomfortableness for those who are aligning with it. So we're supposed to all change our position because you're uncomfortable with it because you align with that. And so sure, if you want to talk around it and talk about the abuse or psychological abuse or, resist and refuse dynamics, but at the end of the day, it's parental alienation. It's alienation of all capacities. It's not just parental, it's sibling alienation, it's grandparent, it's alienation as a whole. It's a form of abuse that's psychologically destroying these children and their potential to be successful and have healthy lives because they cut them off from people who care,
Yeah.
people who love them, who want to protect them. And it's not just when your son's cut off from you, it affects everyone around you as
No,
well.
absolutely. And then just to watch like a ship sinking, to
Yeah.
watch a child just disintegrate in 4 years of all your heart and soul that that you put into your child. I'd give my child my last breath to the drop of water, and now it's not even that. The other parent would do complete opposite, and a handler, which is the parent that's alienating and facilitating just such hatred towards the other party. And whether they use our children as pawns, it doesn't matter. These court systems are not seeing that and viewing that and saying, oh, the child thrived in your custody, Charity, but now he's not thriving in the other party. Maybe we should change this
Mhm.
recipe. No, I just got off the phone with this school system in his high school. Why they're going to allow this child to be in a sophomore when he has no comprehension skills is like, now they're allowing, he can't even show up to school. So there's a huge problem. But yet they get funding for No Child Left
No
Behind.
child left behind.
See, there's always a catch,
Yep.
people. And we're so naive to think like, oh, No Child Left Behind. No, they have left my child way
Yes.
behind, to
Yeah.
the point of having a sixth grader's education where he left off with me. Appalling.
So,
It's
so
devastating.
devastating. So you haven't seen him in 4 years. Do you speak with him at all?
No, I don't. So now he is pretty much, and I've spoken to many psychologists. I truly believe now he believes his lie,
Oh, of
because
course.
he's never had therapy. So you
Mhm,
can brainwash him. Back in
mhm.
war, they were whispering to the prisoners, different things. And this is how they get the prisoner to go on their side. So
Yeah.
you can keep on whispering at night, and that's why they call it torture,
Mhm.
or brainwashing. So I truly believe my child now has believed his own lie. And if he doesn't, he's made,
Yeah.
forced to believe his lie. This is why all I've ever requested is true transparency. If your child is wounded mentally or physically, go take him to the hospital, whether it's mental hospital or called a therapist or a doctor. If your child
Mhm.
had cancer, you would want to seek assistance, right? So obviously, the parent that's alienating the child and not facilitating this child for better growth mentally or physically, there's something wrong. Obviously, it's a no brainer on that one. But no, I have had no contact. My child now has kind of refused and pretty much told me he doesn't even consider me as my mother. That was the most heartbreaking, devastating. And I had such a close relationship with both my boys, but even that one,
Mhm.
he had more sympathy and empathy. I think my older one definitely lacks it and takes after his father, very self-absorbed. My little
Mhm.
one, very just a sweet, pure child. And it's noted by many therapists, just what the destruction of this child.
Well, they become a byproduct of their environment.
Exactly.
And so if you're not teaching them to be decent, kind, amazing human beings, and all they see is what he teaches them, then that's who they become.
Yeah, but for a man, even my mom is very Asian, so she's like, I can't believe he has no pride as a lawyer. You can't even
Yeah.
work with your child for education, and it's true. This guy, and I just told the school, he can't even do a child's homework. So you expect this child to go log in at
Yeah.
3 in the afternoon to have a home class because he doesn't feel like it? They're appeasing a child.
Yeah.
This child is ruling a court system and a school system with this so-called anxiety.
Do you know how the relationship is with the boys, like the sibling relationship?
It's pretty much non-existent. And I have some great pictures. I believe in always. I would tell my children, we're taking a picture to capture this moment, because
Yeah.
when I'm gone on this earth, this
Mhm.
is the only thing you will have to remember of us doing silly pictures. Or you guys, I duct taped them one time in their shirts, and it was a joke of just, you guys are going to learn to love each other and take care and be each other's best friends. And they're laughing and hysterics. And now everything I've taught them, I can ask the older one, how's your little brother doing? I don't know. What's going on with him? I don't know. Why has he missed 300 and something days of school? I don't know. So it's very sad to see that there is no concern
Yeah.
whatsoever of that sibling love. But what do you expect from a problem source?
Yeah.
Um,
That's so heartbreaking.
it is devastating to just sit here and watch the destruction of an innocent, pure child from 10 years old to now
Mhm.
14, and just slipping through the education system because, we're going to pass him to ninth grade. Can't
Mhm.
comprehend anything. No wonder he doesn't want to go to school. A father is not facilitating tutoring, much less therapeutic sessions, so much as doing homework. So, how can this child? This is the product of the next generation of someone that can't
Yeah.
read, speak, problem solve, and attack any problems that they have without calling, crying wolf, and everybody catering to they're spoiled brats. There's no accountability.
And that's the environment that they're creating, and that's the society we're raising, and
Purposely.
then they're they're just condoning that.
Yeah, and there's a true warped reason that they are allowing our children and forcing them to go to the abusive parent, regardless
Mhm.
if it's their allotted custody, the abusive parent, or visitation. And you have, whether your children were being SA'd or physically abused, we still have to force these children. And you're telling me these judges are like, well, he has his legal right to
Yeah.
visitation. It's truly disturbing of what we are, us parents are forced to do.
Yeah, we have to be complacent with these broken guidelines and pseudo laws that they make up.
Absolutely.
So what happens next for you?
So now I'm taking on CPS. I will not tolerate their false accusations and them condoning and prolonging this. It's not going to happen. Not, like I said, and any parent I tell and I advise, you fight to the fullest extent of the law and
Mhm.
every breath. So they're not going to get away with condoning a false allegation. If anything, the tables should be turned and they should be watching the father for
Yeah.
neglect in every aspect. Yeah, I'm going to take them on, and I'm giving them their riot act, and they better abide by it because they get funding, and
Mhm.
they are facilitating basically a crime. They want to say like it's not a crime, it is a crime. But when you are under scrutiny and being charged with CPS allegations, it's pretty much a crime, and you know, you go on a list. So to get off that list is another story. You know, you have to get your file sealed or unfounded, and that's it. So yeah, I'm taking on CPS right now with false allegations. I'm holding the school accountable, the school district, of how a
Good.
child can miss 469 days of classes in high school and still be allowed to continue the same problem. It's worse than the definition of insanity.
Yeah. Any thoughts for our listeners? What feedback, thoughts, ideas, tips can you provide?
You know, empower yourself with people like you, Charity. You have a great platform. You're well versed, and who better to know it out of, unfortunately, your own experience and dealing with this horrible system, and just educate yourself. And now and all these so-called ADA advocates, do not give them your money. You know, they get funding too. So they take your money and pretty much run.
Mhm.
So we all kind of know each other and kind of empower each other with the tools that we all need for whatever certain counties or Article 78 or RICO. So just empower yourself with other people and weed out the people. But if someone says, I'm going to charge you $5,000 retainer, $8,000 retainer, you got to run. It is not legitimate. And we are all here to take down the system together. And this is what it's all about, empowering each other with the knowledge and tools so we can have accountability and abolish this family court and have something new that's just for once.
Great. Tracy, thank you for joining.
Thank you
Thank you
for
for
having
being a guest and for sharing your story. It's absolutely heartbreaking. It just hurts my heart. And I know how devastated you are and your heart just crushed. But keep up the fight. And I look forward to hearing the outcomes. We'll definitely be in touch. And thank you for joining the Fractured Families podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fractured Families podcast. I hope our conversation has provided you with support, understanding, and actionable insights to help you navigate your own family challenges. Remember, healing is a journey, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. You're not alone. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more families in need. You can contact me on social media at Parental Alienation is Real and visit our website for additional resources and ways to get involved. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep fighting for the family bonds that matter most. Until next time, take care and stay resilient.